2021 was fun. Now it's almost done, at least when it comes to the Our Town program, as we join you once again on a Thursday morning at 9 a.m. here on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. My name is Darren Swinson. Our Town, as always, brought to you by Decorah Bank and Trust. Kind of a weird week for a lot of industries, and the radio industry, no exception to it. Different radio listenership this time of year, different people on different schedules, a lot of family get-togethers and everything like that. So we are going to replay the interview we had with our owner, Greg Wennes, who is retiring effective tomorrow. We got a lot of positive reaction to it last week, so we will replay it again this week. Greg Wennes is retiring. We talk about the life and times, the radio industry itself, and what's next for Greg. All sorts of things about Greg's life in radio and outside of radio. Greg Wennes is our guest this morning on Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. I have had the absolute pleasure and privilege of covering many legendary coaches in my career. And a few of them have retired and called it a career during my tenure of covering them. And I always offer them an exit interview. And I'm doing that once again here today with our coach at Wennes Communications, Greg Wennes, who will be retiring here at the end of the year. And Coach, what made this the right time to call her a career?
Well, I think the stars were probably lined up, because I wasn't really thinking about making large changes for a while yet. But sometimes things happen, and they happen the way they're supposed to happen. I was given an opportunity to get into radio and get into ownership along the line by some very good people. And there are a lot of good folks on our staff, as you know, and you're one of them. And I appreciate everyone so much, every single one, every employee I've ever had. But this opportunity came when my minority partner, Les Oskelson, he's held about a quarter of the stock, and my son and Casey and a couple of other young guys on our staff all got together and said, well, we think we'd like to give this a shot. And so as far as the timing goes, I probably could have done this another 20 years. I mean, but there's a time when it's time to let the next generation get on board and get in gear and get in the saddle and get going before they get to too many years and don't have the opportunity to fulfill the long journey that I've gotten to have. So it's a large part of it is about getting the next generation rolling here in this crazy but fabulous business, as you know, Mr. Darren.
Well, looking back on where it started for you in this crazy yet fabulous business, what got you into radio? What kind of piqued your interest?
Well, I grew up on a little farm north of Highlandville, as you know, north and a little bit west. And I decided that farming was kind of hard. I liked it, but my great uncle, my grandfather's brother, Carl Wennes, was an auctioneer, and he inspired me at a young age to become an auctioneer. That farm right behind the convenience store there next to Walmart was his farm. And he always was a inspiration to me. And so at 16, I went to auction school and Mason City. And for a year or so, I had been doing farm sales and household sales, 16 years old, and trying to dress up, like with an LBJ hat and a long old Mercury to make myself look older than I was, so I'd get some sales. But in speech class at North Winneshiek one day, a teacher had me read a poem. I might have written the poem, I don't know. And she said, wow, when I heard you reading that poem, I thought I was listening to the radio. And I wonder if you shouldn't think about being on the radio. And not long after that, KNEI came on the air that spring or summer, June of 1967. And so I drove over there and thought I'll stop in and talk to them. I'd never been in a radio station before. I'd listened to KDEC for years growing up, and I'd watched them broadcast at the Wennes County Fair, and I was always intrigued by that. But he said, sure, order this book. You had to have a license at that time with a broadcast endorsement on it. You may have had to have one of those, a third-class radio operator's telephone with a broadcast endorsement from the Federal Communications Commission. Anyway, so I got this book from New York, $8. The book cost $8. Do you know how many milk checks that was? My cut of the, yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. And so memorize these, read these elements. And I memorized, went to the Federal Building in St. Paul, and I'll never forget, took the test, electronic stuff, memorized it all. Anyway, my mother said, Greg, what have you done now? I was outside, and so I said, I don't know, Mom, what? Well, there's an envelope on the kitchen table from the federal government. So she's like, oh my God, what has this guy gotten into? And so I go in and I open it up, and there was my FCC license. So I called up Mr. Hogendorn down at KNEI, and now I'm auctioneering at the Wennes County Fair in Decorah the third week of August, selling 4-H livestock. And the call comes to go to the office and pick up a phone call. It was from Dave Hogendorn. Come in this was a Saturday. Come in at 5 o'clock. We're going to put you on there at 5:30. Ooh, okay. So I drive over there. 5 o'clock, I walk into KNEI, and I was so self-conscious because I had hog manure on my boots, and I didn't want to have that, disrupt this beautiful facility. And at 5:30, he said, turn this, pull that, plug this, flip this, switch that. And then we walked out the door. It was like, oh my God. And so that first radio performance must have been something to behold. But there you go. A speech teacher suggested, I change course and see what radio is about.
And I know you've done quite a few things. You mentioned auctioneering. You've been quite the eclectic guy when it comes to your interest over the years, but you've always had your hand in the business of radio. Was it just a case of once the mosquito bite of radio bites you, there really is no repellent for it?
Well, you know the answer to that. You know it better just as much as I do, if not better. Yes. Once you're inflicted, it's like COVID-19, you can't take a vaccine for this radio stuff. You're just in it. But yeah, and I think probably the most gratifying thing for me has been to serve other people through this fabulous medium. I remember being out in the barn on Saturdays pitching manure and listening to the radio and cracking the radio with the pitchfork when it would go silent, and then it would pop back on, and how that was fly spec radio. So to provide some, just to do any little thing that may enhance it's so self-fulfilling. I think it feels so good to be able to serve others with this medium.
And you told the story of how you got started on the air, but you made your way up to the sales end of things, into the management end of things. How did that process develop over time?
While I was working at KNEI on the weekends, and still in high school, one day I got the call when I was in class, Greg Wennes report to the principal's office. And oh my gosh, now what?
Was that a common call? I got to ask.
Well, it had happened a couple times before, but I got to tell you, it wasn't my fault.
Oh, of course.
You need to understand that.
All right.
Yeah. So, incorrect miscommunication. Oh yeah, whatever. So anyway, I got to the office, and here's this great big tall guy, Obed Borgen. He owned a station in southeast Minnesota, the first all-country station in the state of Minnesota. And he says, the principal here says it's okay for me to come and take a ride with you. And I'm thinking, really? And anyway, I go out, and here's this great big long black Cadillac, and he puts me in it. And, as I look back at that, I could have been abducted or something, who knows? But anyway, he drove me around, giving me all the reasons why I needed to come to work for his radio station. I had sold some ads for the local newspapers in Mabel, Harmony, and Lanesboro. And a gal that I had sold ads to told this guy that this kid's a pretty good salesman, so he hunts me down, and I refused with the greatest dignity. And then finally he dogged me long enough. So I left KNEI to go to KFIL to sign on in the mornings and then sell ads. And then some years later, with a lot of hard work, straight commission, no guarantees, I don't ever want to have to do that again, but was successful at it. And then he, from there, promoted me to a general manager at KWMB in Wabasha, Minnesota. Keep Wisconsin and Minnesota beautiful, Minnesota. And there I was a GM. And actually, we had the success one time of bringing in more monthly revenue there than the home station in Preston. And so he was pretty, but as long as we're on this track, when I was still at KFIL, I was doing a live broadcast at Steam Engine Days. Walter Mondale, I think you might have heard him. He was that guy that was vice president for a while. And Wendell Anderson and some of those guys, they were campaigning. And so I was interviewing all of them. It was raining, and we were standing on a little wooden box, because the microphone kept tingling like it had electronic shocks in it in the rain. But it was on that day that a guy by the name of John White, who was a banker in Mabel, and I became acquainted and started visiting about radio. He'd built crystal sets as a kid and loved radio. So I'm the manager at Wabasha, and he calls me one day and says, I started this little radio station at Spring Grove, 2,500 watts.
Blowtorch, baby.
It was a blowtorch. That's right. From high atop the hillside, just west of Spring Grove in Minnesota. Anyway, we'd like to have you come down and help us run that. But yeah. Well, when you're coming down to see your folks near Spring Grove, sometime stop in. We'd like to be, okay. So I got driving up on the hillside by Wabasha after the call, and it came in really well. I couldn't believe it. And so I thought, well, I wonder if this guy would be interested in selling part of this little station. And I called him back, and he said, yes, that he was. And from the profits, maybe I could help pay for some of the principal cost of that investment, which I did. And then we took that station over very challenging waters for over 2.5 years, from 2,500 to 50,000 watts. And, a lot of work, and then we changed that to the first time to KQ 98 Hot Country, and was very, very sick. That's Garth Brooks. I owe Garth Brooks and that whole generation of country people, because they were just on fire in 1990 at the time we upgraded KQ. And things went very, very well for a while there. And then started a station in Caledonia, a docket 8090, they called it. And prior to that, I was too close to build on that frequency, but then they changed the rules. And so we got that all in the works and going. And somebody asked me one day, I was giving a speech on recovery down at a college in northern Iowa someplace, and a gal that had invited me said, well, if you can build a station in Caledonia, why don't you build a station in Decorah? And it was like, you could have hit me with a feather, because I knew that there had been a frequency that was sitting around that may fit in the Decorah area. So I get on the phone with the engineers, and sure enough, within a week, we filed an app, and thus KVIK 1047 is born. And those letters, by the way, came off a military station, military communications radio station in Greenland. I wanted
Really?
KVIK for the yes. And so our FCC Washington attorney said, well, I can call them and see if they would be willing to sell the right to those letters. And, because it was just a small little station, but it was somehow licensed through the federal government militarily, I suppose. Anyway, and he called me back a few days later. I said, Greg, that station is idled. I've filed with the FCC and we can get the letters KVIK. And I said, well, great. So thus was born K Viking Gold 1047, Decorah, Iowa. And
I never knew that story. I figured it was just the Norwegian heritage thing, but
yeah, no, we wanted it to be something with a Norwegian theme, but even though it was to serve Kalmar and Fort Atkinson and Waukon and Spring Grove and all ethnic backgrounds, there were so many Vikings up and down the street that the school was Vikings and so on and so on. So we wound up getting K Viking, and then I wound up buying a telephone number from somebody in town, 1047. So it's still to this day 382 KVIK 1047. And anyway, Les Oskelson had told Arlene Salto that he may be interested in joining us on the project, and so he jumped in, and he and Arlene were the first two staff members of KVIK, which went on a few months later. That was in 1994.
And it all started in a closet next to a convenience store, too.
That's right.
Pretty much.
Right. Yes, that Kevin and Anderson and his wife at the time had the convenience store down there. So I'm working on a thread all the time. I'm just, we're paying all the bills and we're doing okay, but always the conservative approach. So we didn't do telephone lines, expensive lines for live broadcasts. We got this Marty. John White had bought a Marty unit, which is basically a box about twice the size of a shoebox, maybe 3 times. And you hook an antenna up in the air and you point it at the tower or the receiving antenna. You know the deal. Audience may not, but so to send signal from Decorah to Spring Grove, where the main computer center was for that station, I'm crawling around on top of that gas station, the convenience store, and I get a Yagi up there, 3-point cement blocks on it, point it in what I think is the right direction with my little $3 compass, and by golly, the signal hit the tower.
Wow.
By the way, just out of fun, Smartcaster may be able to verify this, but I believe if not the first one, we were one of the very first companies in the United States to run 3 broadcast programs, 3 stations off of one PC. And
wow.
So we were running. So when you put the ads into the hard drive, which was a new thing instead of all those old carts, we could play them on 1, 2, or 3, or any combination of those stations, which was really, here's a little note of interest. 1990, it was dragging pretty bad. And the guy from the company says, well, Greg, we've come out with a brand new hard drive. It's a monster. It's a big bad monster. It's 1 gigabyte. I thought, wow, 1 gig. That's huge. So I said, okay, it's a little spendy, huh? Yeah, he said $4,000. It was $4,000 in 1990 for a 1 gigabyte hard drive. And now they give away 1 gigabyte thumb drives like matchbooks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that would have been the equivalent of your $8 FCC book back in the day, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, well, even more. Yeah, no question. McGraw-Hill made a ton on me, I'll tell you that. But
and you talk about the history. You talked about how KVIK came into be. Then you got back to KNEI. You had an opportunity to buy back into that. Did you feel that your career kind of hit full circle at that point?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, to be involved with ownership on the station, that I was so fearful of walking in the door with soiled cowboy boots on, and then work with people like Jim Juve and Les and Jim May and all of those guys. That was radio was. I hear Pimp Incense and Peppermint, and I hear Jeannie C. Riley, and I hear Claudine Longet in my head when I think of 1967 KNEI. We took 222 requests one Saturday when KNEI was 1,000-watt AMer. I mean,
Wow.
that's huge audience. I mean, so this interview could last for days. I mean, this could.
Yeah.
Your
I'm planning on it.
All right. But so we've talked technology and stations and all of that, and to the point now where we have what's going on there, like 6 stations, and 3 of which are already HD as well. I mean, so the technology is just massively improved and fabulous, but it's all about the people. The technology is fabulous, but we couldn't afford to buy any new technology if it wasn't for the Orby Petersons and the Arlene Saltos and Phyllis Thorson and Phil Costigan and Joe Deschler. And, I don't want to leave anybody out. Lori Wilhelmsen. I could go on and on about that KQ98 staff. Just fabulous. I saw a picture pop up the other day, and I think there was over 20 people on that. Fabulous, strong, solid, intelligent. And then to where now we are today with, I believe every single person on our staff I selected, with maybe a couple of exceptions. I mean, Les coming over, just a huge, huge, huge boom to our success. Arlene Salto, 38 years, I think. 38 years. What, my son Pete, one of the first people, probably has more longevity now than the rest of the staff, doing a great job with the new Hawk Rock station. And Casey, working at the All Phase Arena when we owned that. And I said to my wife, I didn't even know her. She hired the staff. Who is that gal out there with that blonde ponytail running all over working? I mean, really, really working it. And so the first thing I ever heard Casey say, she was bartending, was, "Yes, fellas," and the fellas were all laughing, drinking their beer. And she said, "I'm so sweet, I give myself a cavity." I walked in behind the bar and said, "You and I are going to have a long future together." Janelle, my first cousin's daughter was working at a nursing home, and we were at a picnic, and I heard her talking and rambling and ad-libbing, and wait a minute, I don't want to leave anybody out here either. Jane, great. And we've had Chuck, good old Chuck, the Chuckmeister, and Josh, what a treasure. Eric and Kathy and, all the others, both the Rachels, Rachel B and Rachel A, and now Pat and Brian, just powerhouse talents like yourself, just really Randy Iverson, guys like legend. You're a legend, man, with news and sports. And I'm not blowing smoke. I don't blow smoke.
You don't.
Know that, right? I don't. I mean, so let's see. I want to be careful that I haven't not mentioned. I'm sure I have. Anyway,
let's mention Dimitri.
And Dimitri, yes.
Yep.
Dimitri.
That's the only one I can think of between us two that you haven't mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what a crop. I mean, what a terrific crop of fabulous, here again, I learned some things growing up on that little farm. I learned some things not to do. But one of the things I learned to do, this is my wife, Jacqueline, by the way, she's right here.
Hello.
She's responsible for all whatever goodness has happened, Patty, my sister Patty.
Yes.
She was involved for a long time and did such a great job for us. But a work ethic. You learn on the farm to work. you either work or you don't eat. It's just,
Mhm.
it's great motivation, I think.
Yeah.
Hunger is a fabulous motivation.
Yeah.
Um, Honesty, fairness, goodness to others, serving. When somebody got sick on the farm or got hurt, there wasn't any question of whether you hooked up the baler, made some hot dishes, and headed over the plate. It was just when you're going to do it, not if. You always
Yeah.
did it. And that's what the people on our team have been like. How can I help? And not complaining when there's extra stuff to be done, which there always is in radio, as we found out the last 2 years when we were blending the KDEC stations in. So yeah, what a, oh my goodness sakes, what an
Well,
incredible.
and you touch on all these talented people that have been a part of the staffs at Wennes Communications and people that you've worked with in the past. The thing that has impressed me, as well as I do, and a lot of radio stations, the turnover rate is so well, it's sometimes dizzying at times. That has not been the case at your company. What do you credit that to?
Oh boy. Well, I think it's everybody working together as a family. I'm in recovery, and the guy who mentored me in Wabasha from the beginning said, "Now you're going down there and you're going to buy that little radio station." He says, "You make sure you go down there and you run that thing with your head and not with your heart." And you know what, Darren, I couldn't do it. I like all the rest of the people on it. I love people.
Mhm.
Yeah, you got to run it with your head. You got to pay the bills, and you need to figure out how to do the best you can for the advertisers, the sponsors, so that the messages that they have get to the thousands of ears and the listeners. I mean, how can you not be just 100% humbled and grateful for the listeners and the sponsors who allow us to do this stuff? But, to answer your question, I think it's because our people legitimately, sincerely, without a doubt, care for each other. We know each other's kids. We know we go to weddings, we go to anniversaries, we go to funerals. We're family. We're really, and one of the things I've tried to teach the sales reps all along during my whole career is, if I'm more concerned about the revenue in my sponsor's pocket than I am my own, there'll always be enough in my own.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Makes sense.
Take care of the people. Money is important. You got to have it, but it's a tool. But it's only a tool in helping to serve others. So I hope I'm not making this too long, but there's one little short story. It's 1969. I'm on straight commission. I'm trying to build a list. I'm in Harmony, Minnesota. I'm going into Moram's Toggery on the corner, a men's store. Don and Arlene Moram, fabulous people. And this old hunchback guy looks like a chimney sweeper from England, everything except the tall stovepipe hat, had a black hat, but tails, and dragging an old trunk up these steps into the front door. And so I'm 19-year-old kid. I'm tough. I'm dragging up his trunks up into the store. What are you doing? He said, I'm a salesman, a clothing salesman from Chicago. And I sell the clothing to Mr. Moram and his wife, who sell the clothing to you. Oh, fabulous. And I could tell he was old, aged. How old are you? And he said 90 something. I don't remember. 94, 5, 6. He said, yes, I used to ride the train from Chicago to La Crosse and then all the way up through, Hoka, Caledonia, Spring Grove, Mabel, Harmony, Preston, and on up through. And I building this. And he said, oh, it's because I love it. I love people. Yeah, I love people. And so okay, so what's the key? I'm here. I'm new. I'm trying to get off the ground here with my journey. And he said, well, it's always good to be as good as you can to people. Treat people, the golden rule, basically. And okay, so what? Well, of course, work hard. Yeah, you're gonna have to work hard. So our mission statement or my personal statement of our companies, from that day to this, from 1969 to whatever this is, 2021, has been 4 words, and you know what they are: be nice and work hard. What else is there? Just treat people nice. And I've found, so I hope I'm not making too lengthy an answer.
No, not at all.
But if you want to boil it down, it's treat people nice and work hard. Do the best you can. And then at the end of the day, you can lay down and say, well, I did the best I could.
And I know you've talked about it, and you've been pretty upfront about it, about being in recovery and how that has been a part of your life and how you were able to change your life for the better. You talk about being such a people person. How does that coincide with some of the struggles you had in years past?
Well, first of all, I didn't do it. Just like whatever success we've had, I did not do. An ideal thing is not an ideal, it's a we deal. Okay? A gentleman came to my office in Wabasha one day and asked me some questions that I didn't really particularly want to hear, but were true. I'd lost everything. My wife and children had left again. How long are you going to continue this behavior and give up everything that's important in your life, or what's in the bottom of a bottle? And so for the first time in 10 years of denial, of vehement, deadly, dangerous, destructive, depressing, horrible denial, I said, so what do I have to do? It just kind of, I didn't really want to do it, but I could see it was working with him, and he was happy. He seemed happy having changed and worked to get help to change. And so I followed him and went to this place, and then started going to these recovery events on a regular basis, which I still do today. And I want to because I need to, but I also like being there to help the newcomers coming in the door. It's unimaginable, the stories you hear in these meetings of the loss and the destruction and the sadness. But then once in a while, and it's still a pretty low number that recovers of the overall population, sadly, you begin to see the light come into somebody's eyes, and you hear the joy and the peace in their heart. And I get to be a tiny little part of that message from the Creator to them. Imagine how good that feels, Darren. Yeah. When you get to just be there and be present to watch the Creator sending his message through, which basically is one person helping another. That's what recovery really is. One person talking to another who knows what they're talking about. I understand people who drink too much, and they understand me. It's like sportscasters. You understand sportscasters, and they understand you. I don't mean to make a demeaning metaphor of any, but it's kind of like that, only on a life or death basis. And if it wasn't for that man, his name was Ry Solem. He's gone now, so I can say his name. Anonymity doesn't make a difference. Long gone, many years ago. I love the guy. Helped save my life. How could you not love somebody that helped save your life? But if it wasn't for that, there are no radio stations. There are no new families. Fabulous wife, second wife, and 3 kids grown up. John, Darcy, Peter, fabulous spouses, each have a couple kids. I mean, they all tell me that they love me. And based on my previous program, I don't deserve that. I know it's by grace, by the Creator's incredible power, and my willingness to continue to maintain and put in a little, but give out so much. And it's the same way with the radio. I've been blessed to get to put in a little all along the way, and have just gotten way, 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 way more than I ever dreamed, And now to have this incredible blessing to see people that I've worked with and journeyed with get to carry this company forward is, it's just unbelievable, Darren. I mean, it's beyond. I can't even express to you how choking me up here. You're doing this. This is your fault, Buster.
Sorry, not sorry there, Coach.
Oh yeah, it's just been, and so many wonderful people. Just all our business associates, the sponsors, the listeners are so good. Just what golden gems of people we have in that region where we were blessed to grow up. Just
Yep.
a spiritual, kind, dedicated, committed, good bunch of folks. It just, yeah, I've been so blessed. It shocks me how blessed I've been.
Transitioning to not as serious of a subject, just the industry itself. Radio, obviously, it's different than in 1967 when you walked into KNEI and Dave Hogendorn locked you in the station.
Right.
Technology is a big difference nowadays.
Yeah,
you can put out one of these, your phone, and that's the radio for a lot of people nowadays.
right.
How do you see the health of the industry as a whole, and what's the key to keeping radio viable and healthy into the future, into the next generation?
Well, outside of what I've already mentioned, the two biggest components, be nice and work hard, is the trend. And I'm vested in a large company that's doing some fabulous work called Geo Broadcast Solutions, and they're going to be offering, it hasn't, one phase of the development hasn't been completely approved yet, but another has, and I believe it will. And before very long, you'll be able to put small translators or boosters under your signals and localize programming. So in other words, if you have a 50,000 watt radio station, I believe you could put up to 7 boosters on it. The trick with boosters now is, under this technology, digitally, the transmission is received at the reception site at exactly the same time. Before, you couldn't put a booster on the same frequency because it would come off the main tower and get to your radio and it would be all smush. And now they've got that figured out. So in short, the answer is this word with 5 letters, and it's local. Local, local. So you'll be able to put 5 different little substations on your big station and put weather specific to that area, especially that might be helpful, like in the case of what we just saw down in Kentucky and in that area, where fine-tuned radar weather can be honed in. It goes right straight to your cell phone. Different commercial content, for example, say somebody in Decorah would like to have more business in Spring Grove, so they may put extra ads on the Spring Grove booster than they do on the main transmitter coming out of Decorah. So that's one thing technologically. I believe I'm correct. I don't have any scientific research or data to prove this, but my great sense is that social media has impacted, always will have impact in marketing, just as cable did with off-air television in the 60s and 70s. And I believe that I'm correct in this assumption and this theory that social media has attacked and has crested and has settled back down into a place where it probably will always be, a comfortable place that with this technology from Geo will be blended back and forth more and more and more, so that radio, especially drive times, especially morning drive time when people are heading to work, they want to hear, the Les and Nels and the Eric and Kathys, and they want to hear the Chuck in the morning. They want to hear the Pete and Rachels, laughing it up and telling stories and giving them information and playing the music they like, especially the news from Darren Swenson and the sports from Darren. Local is what's going to keep radio going for decades and decades, unquestionably.
Because I've always thought of it, and you're going on 6 decades in this business. I'm only not even half that long, but I'm getting closer by the day. Give me a little bit of time. I've always thought of this industry as a service industry, and this is where I think I passed this on. I had this at least in my system and ingrained in me from my dad, who I think when you come in the term community servant in the town of Decorah. With
Yeah.
1,000,000% bias, I'd put my dad at the
Oh, yeah.
top of
I
that
knew
list.
Gary.
And
I
I
worked
think
for him.
I think that service and that dedication to the service is just the key to keeping this thing going in the right direction. And I'm committed to that. And every one of my colleagues, you set that tone from the top of the food chain at the company. I think it's a service industry, and I think that's where the dedication has to be. And I want everybody doing that, but obviously we can only control what we can control. But I think it's a service industry more than anything. Would you agree with that, Coach?
Absolutely. Just like I said earlier, it's to serve others, and to serve others with honesty and integrity and with effort, and something that's absolutely going to have a positive result. I mean, I've had some good ideas. I've had some lousy ideas, Pledge of Allegiance with the kids, and upbeats and some other things that I've been privileged to get to create and move forward. And people say they like those. How do you get a better feeling than doing things like that? And what a thing for people in the radio industry to allow. I believe depression, not clinical depression, but situational depression, is absolutely unresolved potential. Unresolved potential. Everybody has gifts. Everybody can do things to help. I believe my Creator, I don't know about yours, but I believe mine gave every single person some skills and gifts and talents and abilities with which they can help other people. And how do you get a better place than the platform of radio to do that? Okay, maybe television does it and some social media, but radio is, and here's the other thing. They'll have self-driving cars in another 20, 30 years and maybe less. And then maybe you can sit and stare into your cell phone, but they're going to want to listen to the radio anyway. They're going to want to hear what the weather, they're going to hear what's coming down on their hats when they get out of that self-driving vehicle. So we're going to continue to serve.
Well, that's all I've got for you, Greg. I guess I got to ask you, what are you going to fill your time with now?
I'm going to keep doing exactly the same things that I've always done. I want to help other recovering folks. I'm not going to bug the staff at the radio stations, but I will be available to you and to everybody else on the staff whenever I could ever possibly be of help. Of course I want to do that. Why wouldn't I want to do that? I guess I'm committed now to continuing to do upbeats, so that'll be one of the things for sure. But maybe a little bit more travel. Not a whole lot different. I'm enjoying my life. Like I say, it's more about passing on the opportunity like was given to me by people in the past to those that can go forward with it.
Well, Greg, we appreciate you taking some time talking about your career and a lot of things. And I guess this edition of Greg Wennes, This Is Your Life, maybe we'll call it that here this morning. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the privilege of getting to work for this company since August 30th of 2019, Greg. And this may embarrass you a little bit, but you talked about the word integrity, and I've dealt with other media companies that haven't been this way. I think the best thing, not that I was ever uncomfortable working for you, but the thing that made me the most comfortable working for you at the start of COVID-19, obviously it was a challenging time for many people in media. And you assured us that I am not getting rid of any of you. And I saw many other media companies from small to large get rid of people at the beginning of it, using it as an excuse more than anything. And that proved you were about us and about the product and about what we do. And it proved you valued us day in and day out. And I haven't seen that in other places that I've been at. And that was the place that I knew for sure that I'm working for a good company and I'm working for a good man. It's been a privilege and an honor, and we'll definitely stay in touch, and I'll look forward to your text messages. You're welcome to text me anytime or call me anytime, sir.
I appreciate it, and that goes both ways. Before we get off, though, there's one thing, too, that I want to make very clear. There's one person who has listened to nearly every single one of my fears and concerns, and anybody who says that they don't have fears and concerns, like you said during COVID, I was scared.
Yeah.
I don't like, it doesn't sound very manly or macho or business, but my wife, Jacqueline, I mean, she's been there every single step and helped support me and provide encouragement and listen to my grumblings sometimes when I needed to grumble. And, so she's right there at the top of the list of all the people who deserve credit for whatever success I've had. So thank you, Jacqueline.
Well,
and thank you, Darren. Thank you for your kind words. Honest to God, it goes both ways.
Well, and I figured out, and I've been assured over the last year and a half that behind every good man is a good woman, and I know that
That's
for
right.
Sure. Being married for a year and a half too, and I can definitely back it up what you're saying there. So
yeah, finally the old dog got caught in the noose. And I'm glad to see it. You seem really happy, and I'm happy for you.
I am. And Greg, thanks for the time. I enjoy your retirement, but stay in touch, my friend.
Okay. And you too, Darren. We love you. Thank you.
Once again, thank you for tuning into our interview with our owner, at least for another about, 40 hours or so, as Greg Wennes joined us to talk about his life and times, the radio industry itself, what's next for Greg. He's still going to be doing upbeats. Don't forget about that. We appreciate him taking the time to tell us about his career, and we thank him for everything he's done, not only for us as a company, but for the radio industry in general in our neck of the woods. Job well done, Greg, and we wish best of luck to you in retirement. This is our final Our Town program of 2021. Just counted it up. We had 173 interviews during the every Thursday program. That's an average of about 3.5 a week. We hope you find them entertaining and informative, and we hope it allows you to be a little more in touch with our town week in and week out, and all the interesting people and all the interesting places and all the interesting things that are happening in the tri-state area. We appreciate you tuning in each and every week, whether it's through terrestrial radio at 9 a.m., 94.9 and 99.1 The River, whether it's through KMRVradio.com at 9 a.m. every Thursday morning, or whether it is through our YouTube channel. Again, we put these on YouTube so you can actually see the people we are talking to on a week-to-week basis. Just head to YouTube, like today's program. Just search 1230 Our Town Program, and you'll be able to find it. We also put it on the Facebook pages of all of our Wennes communication stations. So thanks, everybody, for a great 2021 for this program, and we look forward to another great year in 2022. Our thanks to our sponsor, Decorah Bank and Trust. Our thanks to our boss, Greg Wennes, for joining us once again. And most importantly, we thank you for tuning in, for logging on, or for watching Our Town on 94.9 and 99.1 The River. Happy New Year, everybody.